All right, so we last episode we got everything deployed and added some new features. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to refactor this page because I just think the UX is this. There's too many button clicks. I kind of talked about that before. What I might do is I'm going to do a 9x9, or sorry, a 3x3 grid, which will have your matchups, and every column will be Zerg versus another race, and then the center column will be like Protoss versus another race, and the last column will be Terran versus another race. Again, it's always good to just play with the code, play with the design, see if it works. It's always better to know if something works when you actually start playing around with it and clicking with it, which is why I'm a big advocate of experimenting and just trying stuff out and then refactor if it doesn't work. So let's find what page this is doing this on. Okay, we have a races page. I think I can also minimize this. And this says select your race, and right now it just shows Zerg, Protoss, and Terran. And what I'm going to do is I believe I could potentially just, I might just make a constant out here so I can do like a map. I'll say const matchups is equal to this. It's going to be an array. And we're going to say ZVT, ZVT, and ZV, what's the other one? Zerg. And we'll do the same thing for the other ones. So it'll be Terran or Protoss versus Terran, Protoss versus Protoss, Protoss versus Zerg, and then finally Terran versus Terran, Terran versus Protoss, Terran versus Zerg. And we might have to add a little bit more to get this working. Like we might have to make separate images or have like 2 images on the card itself. And then also we might need more metadata like the source race and the opponent race. So maybe I'll make these objects. I'll say like opponent in your race. I'll say Zerg. And then I'll say opponent race Terran. And then the matchup will be ZVT. Okay, so I'm just trying to add more metadata to this so it's like a little bit easier. And your race Terran, your Protoss. Zerg. See? Sometimes with coding, you have like this tedious stuff where you have to basically just do a lot of the same boilerplate. Like this. And sometimes you can find better ways to like abstract it and make it easier. But I'm just doing what I need to do right now. So let's just do a Protoss versus Zerg here. And then finally, we need 3 more for Terran. Terran versus Terran, Terran versus Protoss, Terran versus. And then also change the matchups ZV, TVZ, can't speak right now, TVP, TVT, fix these up, TV versus T, Protoss versus Protoss, Protoss versus. Do I got these all set up correctly? Terran, Protoss, Zerg. Okay. All right, so now the goal is if I keep this a grid column 3, I should be able to just map over this, I think. And we could potentially just list out. I'm just going to do the index right now. Actually, I could probably do like the matchup dot matchup because that'll be unique. And then I'm going to put a card here and delete all this other stuff. And one thing I noticed is that we also need to keep track of the matchups, which maybe we won't worry about that just yet. And then also the image, like we can just hard code it for right now. Let's see what happens if you do this. So now we got a bunch of cards. They're all a picture of Zerg, but instead, I'm going to say, instead of select your race, I'm going to say select your matchup. Select a matchup. So, probably add some padding to the top of this. Padding 12. And then in the button itself, I'm going to put the matchup name. So for the race name, I'm going to put these as curly braces. Like this, and I will say string interpolation versus string interpolation. And here we can say matchup dot your race, and then matchup opponent race. Save that. The name should change. Looks good. They're a little high. I think I should reduce the height of these if possible. So let's go to the race card and let's see if we can do that. The image, let's try changing this to an actual like next image and see what happens. I need to add a width or a height property on here. So I think I might give it a height of like 100. See what happens. It looks like you have to give it a width. See if we give it 100. Okay, let's try a width of like 200. I think there's also a way to like change the next image's like scaling. I always forget this, so I'm gonna have to go to next image tag and we'll have to learn more about this. I think there's a way to like say fill. Is that it? Fill. You give it. Okay, where's I'm using TypeScript, so it should tell me. If I say fill, what are the options? Doesn't tell you. Awesome. Maybe fill is not what I'm looking for. Maybe I'm looking for something else. Fill's just supposed to be a Boolean. And I don't want to put a height, so let's see what happens. Both width and fill properties, only one should be used. Okay, if I don't put a fill, what happens? That looks beautiful. Let's go and read the docs about like what you're supposed to specify for fill. A Boolean that causes the image to fill the parent element instead of setting width and height. The parent element must assign position relative, position fixed, or position absolute. So I need to give this parent probably a relative. I'll say class name is relative. I also don't know why this thing has a link in here. Like I shouldn't be able to click the cards. Seems kind of weird. I'm gonna get rid of that. And then here I can say like relative. How beautiful that is. I don't know where the buttons disappeared to. There should be a button right here. So yeah. Let me try going back to height. You know, maybe we could just do like 2 images. We'll have an image of your race and then an image of the other person's race. Maybe that'll make more sense. So I'll do 2 images here. And we want this thing to be in a container probably. So I'll just give this a class name of flex. Like that. 2 images now. And probably add some, is it called space between? Justify between? I think that'll space them out. Okay. Technically, we could even say like VS in the center. That'd be cool. That looks pretty cool. Probably some gap 4. And then probably some align or item center to make it centered on the area. And then the card itself, like I might even give it some padding. So like let's just give this a padding of 4. Okay, never mind. I don't like that. Get rid of that. I don't like the icon over here. I'm gonna get rid of this SVG. And I'm also going to flex justify center on this. Here we go. It's a little bit, I don't know. I'm not sure if I like it. There's a little bit too much padding on the page itself. So like, let's go to the page. Let's get rid of the padding 12 and give it like an 8 instead. Wait, am I looking at the wrong thing? Why is this not working? Select the matchup. Where is this being done? I think this is because it has min height of screen. I might get rid of that and see what happens. Then I'll give it some padding top of 12 and see. There we go. Okay, so the idea is now you're going to select your matchup. It's still, I need to change the icons. So let's go ahead and figure out a way to pass in different images based on the name maybe. So let's just go ahead and make a function that's going to say get race image. And if it's Z, we're going to put that URL to where it was before, like this. Wait, no, it's this one. Okay, so up here, we will put a string for Zerg, E, and T, Darren, Protoss. And basically, I'm just going to say erase image map. To get the correct source, we're going to go ahead and say like your race letter equals, we might as well just pass the whole matchup to this, right? Because I want, where's the matchup? I'm going to pass the matchup string like this. This is going to be a string that says match up string. And we're going to basically get, we'll say matchup string split on the verses, and we'll get the first letter. And we can also just destructure like this, be a little bit cleaner. So your race letter, opponent race letter. Split does not exist on, oh, needs to be matchup. And then we need to look up the const your race image is equal to race image map of your race letter. Same thing with the opponent. I'll say as const to get rid of that error, I believe. Why is this? I'll just go ahead and. So this is complaining undefined cannot be used as a type. It's because this thing can potentially not be, like it says that it could potentially not have the right thing. So like, sometimes I hate TypeScript. Why is this complaining? I mean, I could say as any, will that fix it? I feel like I ran into this on an earlier part of the series. It's because it thinks that this thing could potentially be undefined. Let me try this. Will that fix it? String, race map image. So it doesn't like the fact that at this point, this should be defined. These are strings. Cool. Thought if you had as const here, it wouldn't complain about that. Element implicit has any type because expression type string cannot be used to index. Read only Z. Okay. And I hate TypeScript, so I'll say as any. And there we go. I fixed our issue, but now you have lint errors everywhere. I don't really hate TypeScript. There's things that like, I just feel like I don't really understand. That should be pretty easy to like get TypeScript to like say, okay, this should be fine. Like I have a map here, an object that has strings. Like maybe I need to say record string. Like would that make it happy? Okay, that made it happy. So that's how you do it. That's not how you do it because now it's failing down here because it's saying that this could potentially be undefined. So I think if you say as const, that might fix it. Your race image. Why would that be? Whatever, I'm just going to. Anyway, so does that have the right things displayed? Zerg versus that. Protoss versus that. Now this is very, I don't know, this is kind of hard to read. There's a lot going on. I kind of wish it was like the other way around. Like the columns were here, Zerg, 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 Protoss, Protoss, Protoss. So how would you do that? I think there's a simple way using the grid to like change the ordering, potentially. Tailwind, grid, change, ordering. I don't know if that's even possible, honestly. Utilities for controlling the order of flex in grid items. You can put order on the thing itself. using negative values, hover, order last, customizing your theme. Or what we could do is we could have, I feel like this should be super simple to do, but for some reason I'm just not thinking about the solution. I don't want to have to change the data because I feel like there's a way to do this in CSS. I guess the easiest thing I could do is literally just change it to be Zerg versus Aaron. And then I could do, because it's by 3, right? So if I did Z first, and then the next one should be Z. And then the, let's see, 1, 2, 3. I'm just going to rearrange the data until it looks good. All right, so we want Protoss in the center. So it should be Z versus T, Protoss versus that. And then this should be Terran versus something. So let's just go ahead and move the Terran up there. Okay. And then next row should be Zerg versus something, Protoss versus something, Terran versus something. Like that. Nope, not like that. Let me save this. Protoss and Terran need to switch to Protoss. Zerg versus Protoss, Protoss versus Protoss, Protoss versus. This needs to be Terran versus something. I'll do this one here. I'll switch this one with that one. Okay, I don't know. I guess this looks okay. It's just super confusing. I think maybe there's not enough white space. And also this versus, I feel like just adds too much stuff to it. This thing, I don't need to pass in the source anymore because that's determined by the actual thing. Let's find out where we're adding some gap to some stuff. Like here, I'm gonna get rid of that, and I'm also gonna get rid of the gap. And maybe make the gap just super small, like 2. That's a little bit cleaner. I do think there needs to be more space between these cards though, so I'm gonna go ahead and say gap of here. Wait, where are the cards? Raise card. I'm gonna say gap of 8 here. I don't know. So the idea is you select the matchup, and that should take you to Zerg versus like Protoss. I don't even know if I like this, honestly, but whatever. So the idea is href. This thing probably needs to be interpolated. Depending on the matchup that you picked, I might even just add, we get just 2 lowercase of things. So I'm going to say match up your race to lowercase. And then that's going to be going to a page where it says match up opponent race to lowercase, like that. Okay, so look here, it's actually selecting the right thing. And I like this a little bit better. Again, I feel like this is a little bit convoluted. Maybe there's some type of visual cue that can make this a little bit easier to tell. But the idea is like to reduce the amount of clicks. I think this kind of is a step in the right direction because now there's only 1 click to get to the matchup that you want. And I think that's okay. So let's go to the other page. I believe there's like another page I added, which is for like selecting your opponent race, where I think I can just delete this index. Let me make sure this is the right one. I think it is. Let's just delete it. And now I have 1 less page to worry about. I don't know. If you guys are good at UX or design, let me know. Does this page seem like it's just still not good? Would you rather just be a drop down here and you can select your matchup from your like search thing? The idea is like, let's say what I like to do sometimes if I start the game up, I get matched randomly with someone. I don't know what they're gonna be, but I know I like playing Zerg, right? So when the game's loading, it tells me who they are, and I can simply just go here and I can go and find like my favorited builds that I have for this matchup already. So maybe I could have like some favorites here. I just find it a little bit quicker than like going and selecting a drop down and selecting the matchup. But honestly, like who cares? That's 2 clicks. Maybe it's not that big of a deal. So as far as user stories, I think I did this one. Should be able to view all builds. We did that last time. Bookmarking a search scenario. Someone left a comment about this one. Don't know if I want to do it though, but this one is user shall be able to sort build orders by author and title. I don't know if I want to work on that yet, but let's just go ahead and think about some other things. A user shall be able to upvote builds. A user shall be able to comment on builds. What else should we be able to do? A user shall be able to favorite a build. So let's say you have a list of favorite builds you want to basically use, right? I want to have like a favorites collection or something. Maybe that'd be cool to do. I think we fixed this bug as well. I'll delete that. Let's actually look through here and see like what other things might be on here. They have comments, but no one really even uses the comments, so I don't even know if I want to add that. They have a cool little salt encoding thing where you can actually like load up a hash or a salt and put it into the gameplay, and it'll like show the build order on the screen for you. They have the ability to export a new build order, so basically you can take an existing build order and build off of it and modify it. That might be cool as well. They have timestamps and stuff like that. But really, I think when you upload a build order, can you even upload one? You probably have to log in, don't you? And then their created account is like, they don't even have social media logins, do they? They don't even have Gmail. Like, I don't have a Facebook. I don't use Twitter. So there's just stuff that could be improved. They do have a difficulty. Maybe that's something we can look at. They also have something related to maps. Every map in the game has like different sizes. So some maps are larger, which means that some build orders are not going to work as well as others. Some maps are small, which means that a rush becomes even more scary because it's less distance for units to walk from your base to the other person's base. That might be interesting to kind of look into at some point. But I think the main thing I want to try to focus on is the actual build order itself, the way you create the build order here in our app. Having a text area is obviously not a great user experience. If there was a different approach for basically selecting a sequence of units and buildings, and it could automatically create the build order for you and like figure out the timings and figure out like how long stuff would take to finish based on when you click those things, I think that might be pretty cool. Yeah, let's just go ahead and try to do that. I don't know, it might be a lot of work, but might as well just start now with it, right? So let's go to submit build. And instead of having this whole text area here, what we want, or what I'm trying to achieve here, is I want like a smarter way to build up build orders. So depending on your matchup, like whatever your race that you selected was, I think we should have maybe a toolbar, maybe it's on the left or the right or here, where you can select units and buildings and it builds up your build order for you. So technically we could make this thing read-only. But we'll play around with this. Let's see how far we get. I'm kind of tired today, so I'm not sure if I'm going to add too much extra functionality here. But we got this label, we got this text area. And I think what we could potentially do is wrap this in a div and give it like a class name of flex. Like so. And we're going to go ahead and just give this width of, I'll say 1/2. And then we'll make another area in here that's also a width of 1/2. like so. Don't know why that didn't full width it. W full, do this. Margin auto. Why is this not? Why is styling so hard? So I don't think this page even has a container, which probably I need to add one. So like instead of having main here with flex and stuff, if I just added a container, it might look a little bit better. Go ahead and get rid of that flex stuff. I'm gonna delete all this stuff. Don't need a gap. Padding top, padding bottom. Don't want dark anymore. Why is this all being centered here? Let's just go ahead and look at some of the styles, figure out what's going on. So this should be a container, right? This container should take up like, oh, I need to give it a margin auto, auto. I might just left align this stuff now, like instead of center aligning it, I'm gonna do left align. White. Get rid of that. Flex full, flex columns, items centered. Get rid of that. It's a build order. I think we can get author and title all in the same line, and that's like more real estate. So like, let's just go ahead and get rid of the grid stuff. Get rid of this. This whole form. Okay, class name. Let's just flex box it, whatever. Let's see what happens. Okay, so that looks okay. Let's just gap for it. Okay, no, let's just do 12. That looks a little bit better. Submit a build order. Probably give this stuff some. Can we do gap on this? Probably not, right? We probably have to actually give this like a flex column gap of 8. Put some space between that stuff. Maybe a 4. The H1, like text 4XL. There we go. I'll do gap of 8 again. Close out of that. So we got matchup, style, author, title, description, build order, and then we have 2 columns here. Let's go find where we did high. I don't know where I did that, so let's just go down. Bro, where did I put the high thing? Oh, it's right here. So instead of width 1/2, I mean, technically we could probably just do no width, and I think the flex box should automatically scale it. No, I guess we do need the width. But what I wanted to do is add some gap here. Gap of 8, put some space between these two things. So the idea, if on the right side, we could have the units. So I'm gonna do like another div here. And again, I'm just gonna give this a gap of 1/2. Actually, I'm just gonna give this flex. What am I trying to do? You guys are probably so confused right now. But I'm gonna go ahead and just put some units here. So I can say like drone. And then I'm gonna say spawning pool. Now the idea is I want to have images that the users can click on. But again, do the simplest thing first. So if I can keep them as just clickable buttons, that's cool too, right? Do the simplest thing to achieve what you're trying to achieve. Didn't I add a button component? Didn't add one? Okay. But inside of basically here, I'm going to go ahead and say H2. This could be called units, and then another H2 called structures. And we're going to split this up into 2 divs. So, and we're going to put the drones inside of units. We'll put the spawning pool inside of structures. And probably add some gap to this. And then for the units, the H2, I'll say like X is 2XL. Go ahead and copy this over. And give this some flex column, gap of 4, just to put some spacing between these buttons, like that. And the idea is every time you click on one of these buttons, it's going to append to your build order. So how do we do that? I'll say on click, and I'll say add unit to build order. Right now I'm going to hard code this stuff. Just hard code it. I don't know if it needs to be called add step. I'll say add step because we want to use the same thing for both the structures and the same thing for the unit. So I'm going to say add step to build order, put them on the buttons. This could be spawning pool. So we don't have an on-click listener. Let's add one. And I'll say const add step. Actually, I'm going to do function. I'm trying to use functions for my functions actually, and not consts. And this will be the step name. Could be a string, I guess. And what we're going to do is we're just going to append to the build order. I'll say set build order. Sorry, that's probably cut off by my screen. I'll say get the current build order, which I think we call build. So I might need to rename that so it's not so like obtuse. And then I'm going to append. I think I can just append a new line here maybe. And I'll say step name. So the idea is if I click on this, it should append drone, and it crashed my page or something weird. Why did that do that? I think because this is probably inside of a form. The form probably has an on submit, and it probably saved that to the backend. So what I need to do to prevent that is I could either say type button, or you could say like e default or something. I'm just gonna say type button, and I don't think it's going to automatically submit that stuff when you click. Okay. So now it'd be cool to actually keep track of these units and structures. So I'm going to say const units, and then I'll say zerg, and then we're going to have an array of units. That could be an object. So I can say drone, I'll say name of drone, and then I will say cost, or say supply could be 1. And then same thing with the buildings. So structures, this would be spawning pool, and this doesn't have a supply. Technically, we could just have a supply of 0. And let's make this code a little bit more dynamic. So down here, we were like rendering out buttons with hard-coded stuff. Not the best approach, which is why I come back and I like to refactor my code. So now what we're going to do is render out buttons based on an array of data. And the key for that button will be the unit name, like this. And this will be the unit. And this will be unit dot name. Add step to build order. This will be a unit, so I'll say t unit or t step. How about that? And then all of these will be an array of t steps. And again, you can figure out names for these. If you don't like the name t step, like you can change that a little bit. Actually, this is going to be, it's a little bit more complicated than that. So this is like a record of, I'll say const races is equal to zerg protoss, and then this will be Aaron. Make that a type. And this will be a record of races followed by an array of steps. So this will be a t-step, and the t-step has to have a name, and it has to have a supply, which is a number. Type zerg is missing from the following properties. Type races. I don't know if it's complaining because I'm missing Protoss and Terran. Is that really why it's complaining? Let's see if this is why. That is why it's complaining. So let's just go ahead and add those in so TypeScript's not complaining anymore. And we're going to go ahead and do the same thing for structures. There we go. Let's go down to where we're using these things. The reason I did all that typing is so that we can actually get errors when we do something wrong. So this unit would be units of, now we have to know what build order we selected. So we're going to go ahead and say like const race is equal to style. And I think for style, it's like ZV something. So I could say style dot split. And again, all this, like you're probably seeing this code, and you're like, oh man, there's so much ugly code here. It is. I'm just prototyping and I come back and I fix this up. So don't be worried. There's something I'm doing that looks really nasty in terms of code quality or style, because it is nasty and we're going to fix it up later. So basically I want to get the first character. So the race that you selected, I'm going to go ahead and just keep track of that. So it's going to be a string. And instead of saying Zerg, honestly, I'm just going to say Z, E, and T. At some point I might come back and make this like actually be proper, but as I just said, I want to get this working. So let's do Z here. And I believe this should be type of race. So down here, I'm going to say units of the race you selected, which will be an array that we can map over. And this will be a T unit, T step, I mean. And this I'll say as races. This, we can say unit as name. Okay, so let's just do the same approach for the structures. I'm going to do a same button here, and nothing is going to change other than instead of units, we're going to say structures. And I'll say structure here, and we'll say structure, structure name, and let's delete this. Property of map as races. So unit should have an array. Let's just go ahead and print out what race is. Maybe this is undefined and it's complaining. Go ahead, load up my terminal, go ahead and refresh the page. It seems as if the race is not proper. So style, I think we default style. Oh, it's not style, it's matchup. Okay, so I'm just doing the wrong thing. This should be matchup. There we go. So the idea is as you change your matchup, it'll change your units. That's pretty cool. And then as I click on these, it should append those to, or should call them in the function. And then we could say step name is equal to name. And we probably need to keep track of the supply too. So like we start off with a starting supply of 12. So we might need to keep track of that. Starting, I'll just say supply and set supply is use state. That's going to be set to 12 as default. And we're going to basically, every time you click on one, I'm going to say at 12, you're going to build this. So we need to actually render out the supply like so, plus a space, plus this. And then we're going to say set supply of supply plus 1. Actually, not plus 1, it'll be step name dot supply. And the idea is that as I click this, it says 12 drone, 13 drone, 14 drone, 15 drone. Spawning pool should not increase anything. Drone, 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 spawning pool, drone, 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 spawning pool. Now, does this look correctly? So the game starts, you have 12 supply. It's saying build a drone, build a drone, build a drone. At 15 supply, you build another drone, which should put you to 16 supply. You build a spawning pool. Now for Zerg, the spawning pool actually reduces your supply. So I actually need to say, where's the spawning pool? This needs to be supply -1, because if you're playing Zerg and you use a unit, your supply could potentially go down. So let's just go ahead and click spawning pool and make sure that it decrements, right? You can keep on using your drones and that'll use up your supply. I'm gonna refresh the page and start fresh. So drone, 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 all the way up to, Let's do a 17, you do a spawning pool. And that should have reduce it by 1, and then you add 1. Yeah, let's just add some more buildings. The spawning pool, there's a hatchery, and then you also have an extractor. Let's try it again. So this is actually a well-known build. I believe you do like a 17. Actually, some people do a 16. So you do drone, 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 drone. And then on 16, you build a hatchery. And then you drone up to 18. And then you do a extractor and a spawning pool. Sometimes they do a spawning pool and extractor. So that's the idea. And of course, you can go in here, you can modify the things as you need to. But this should probably be read-only, because if you go and you delete some stuff, like your supply is going to be messed up. I'm not sure how to address that. Honestly, this should probably not be an editable text area. You might have to have a way to like delete supply and have it keep track of all this stuff. But honestly, I've kind of run out of energy to continue with this video, so I'm going to commit what I have. Again, everything I showed you in this file, like a lot of this code needs to be cleaned up. So don't judge too harshly right now. This is just I'm just rapidly prototyping to see if this is an approach that'll work well in terms of UX in building up a build. If not, I'll change it, right? I don't want to spend too much time in like really over engineering like this stuff, because all this might be throwaway. And I'm just playing around with the code to make sure this is a good approach or not. Let's just go ahead and commit this. I'm going to say working on a build order tool. And I'll go ahead and add those changes, commit them, sync them up. Anyway, if you guys like watching, be sure to give me a thumbs up, subscribe, bell icon, and also feel free to join my Discord if you want to talk to me directly, or just ask questions and try to get help if you're learning how to code. We got a lot of people there who are willing to help you out if you're stuck. So be sure to check out my Discord and stay tuned for the next video in this series. Hopefully it should be coming out soon. Have a good day and happy coding.